Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, where unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Chase Briscoe has now scored his second consecutive Southern 500. First time that's happened in, well, if we count the May races, you go back to 2005, 2006 with Greg Biffle, but I'm sure the statistic would be different if we're talking about traditional Labor Day weekends there as well. But regardless, tremendous accomplishment for him there, albeit with some challenges that this car presents to passing at the very end of the race there as well. But regardless, we have some big stories here along the way. We have a fine night for the Legacy Motor Club in the top 5. AJ Allmendinger doing a great job for the colleague effort as well. And yeah, we'll get into some playoff stuff too. I suppose that has to be brought up. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you're having a wonderful Labor Day weekend. And thank you for spending a little bit of it with me here on the show tonight. We'll jump right into it. Again, congratulations to Briscoe for the win. He's really figured out this Darlington track in recent years. Last year, when we were sitting here talking about his victory with Stewart-Haas Racing and how he pulled off that dramatic pass with, I believe it was Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain there towards the end of the race there, and holding off Busch to the stretch run there. Tremendous and very reminiscent of his win against Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series back in 2020 during that tremendous year that he was driving the number 98 car. Unfortunately, fell short of a championship that season. But certainly one of the things that they're going to be talking about with this one going forward is, and they've already mentioned it here in the broadcast here, is, what's going to be happening with the 19 team in this stretch run of the playoffs themselves. Certainly a team that's no stranger to success at Phoenix. Indeed, Briscoe winning at Phoenix for his first Cup win with Stewart-Haas Racing those years ago in the next-gen car. Whoever, they mentioned, what was it, 5 out of the last 8 times the person who was the first driver to win in the playoffs ended up making it to the Final Four. He's going to be a tough one to follow. And perhaps it should have been a bit more obvious coming into this. I honestly picked Shane Van Gisbergen to win, or at least have a fine showing there. I was expecting him after Richmond, where he had such a good run out there, and Daytona, where he was leading laps, to be able to make a statement in this one, knowing that, a lot of times, drivers that are good at road courses kind of figure out these more treacherous tracks like Pocono or Darlington, but really was out to lunch in this one. Didn't seem to have the right strategy, and certainly was losing laps at the end. Van Gisbergen ended up well back in the lineup here with very low attrition, by the way. We'll get into the last car battle as well here. But Van Gisbergen 2 laps down in the 32nd spot when all was said and done there. But he was certainly not the only playoff driver to have problems in this race. Right from the very beginning, it was Josh Berry bouncing off the outside wall. Car snapped loose on him just after the car bottomed out in turn 2, the very first lap of the race. We've seen first lap attrition at this track before. You think back to Stenhouse's wreck back in 2020, and even further back when the 21 car with Neil Bonnet was involved in a 6-car accident in the spring race here in 1980. Ended up being one of the very few times we've seen the 21 car finish last at Darlington. In that case was actually the most recent time that the Wood brothers finished last at Darlington. But then kind of merging into this story here, Josh Berry and his crew completing repairs at about 119 laps of the event, getting him back out there, having the bonus point for the fastest lap. I think he still defended that at the end. Do we have, let's see, I'm just kind of looking to see if that's on here. I don't see at least on this, but at least in the closing laps, it looked like he still had that advantage there towards the end, much like we've seen Kyle Larson do at both Mexico City and at Watkins Glen earlier this year after some early misfortune in those races. It seems like that's another way for drivers to really kind of capitalize on a difficult start to the race and still kind of leave with more than 1 point. If you at least get 2, try to get something else that's happening there at the same time. But Berry ends up your last place finisher. In the closing laps, Cody Ware had a upper control arm break after he bounced off the wall in turn 4 and limped around the track there. He'd already lost some laps after going to the garage area to fix a toe link after bouncing off the wall earlier in the event. and NASCAR towing the car back to the garage area. Luckily, it looked like they were able to kind of give him a spot where he could easily return to the track. Although it seems, again, I don't know why the tow trucks can't be coordinated to tow these cars back to their pit stalls like we saw a couple of times. It seems like there's still some kind of disjoint between either the teams and NASCAR and whoever's driving the tow truck. I guess they figured it was probably just easier to just have them all go to one spot in the DVP zone, and even if it's just a situation there. But with Cody Ware, I think that worked out, in the end, because ultimately it wasn't just a flat tire they had. They did hit the wall. They did have to get a tow link fixed, and they were able to take care of that. But unfortunately, still a short day for him with another suspension problem, putting him into the fence, and ends up in the 37th spot. But by then, Barry had run just enough laps. He had a 10-lap gap between the last place finisher, Josh Berry, his first of the year for the Las Vegas winner, and the next to last place finisher, Cody Ware, made up most of the gap there. I believe it was about 96 laps or so to go when the 51 car pulled behind the wall there. And so, yes, it's going to be a challenge in the playoffs, but as they showed in the point standings, there were so many other drivers that really had problems in this race too, that Barry still remains within about 19 points of the bubble going into next week's action at Gateway. So we'll see where things shake out there as well. But a difficult start to the year, and seeing the Wood brothers be at the back of the field at Darlington, definitely something you don't usually see, and the statistics definitely showed that, but definitely another part of this at the same time there. But Barry, again, your last place finisher, first for him this season, and the third in his Cup Series career. You remember his most recent one was actually at Kansas last year when we still had the old DVP rules. And indeed, in that case, he actually had a situation very similar to what we saw with Cody Ware tonight, with a flat tire, ended up costing him a finish in that race. Car getting towed behind the wall, out of the event. The old rules thankfully tweaked there in the Cup Series. Hopefully that changes in Xfinity and Trucks. We'll find out if that's, given some of the other news this week, I don't think that's the highest priority NASCAR has at the moment, but we'll see how things play out there. But your bottom five finishers, Cody Ware in the 37th spot, Derek Kraus in 36, Timmy Hill and Ty Dillon rounding out the bottom five. Another unfortunate trend from this weekend, that being fires on board these cars here again. Some kind of an issue in the engine compartment on the number 44 tonight. The New York Racing team, as Derek Kraus climbed behind the wheel. J.J. Yaley, my understanding is, was not in the car this week as he was running at Calistoga in a USAC dirt race out there, and apparently had a win out there, so congratulations to him. That's actually a track not too far from here at LASCAR headquarters, so congratulations to Yaley there on that. But Kraus, a rough evening for him there. Had a battery change, got back out on track in the closing laps, and then engine went sour off turn 4, had to pull out of the way, and then flames in the against the floorboard there. Good to see him. He was able to get out of the car. I don't know if we've had any other interviews with him or anything in the infield there or anything, but ends up being a short evening for the New York Racing effort there as well. And this on top of what we saw with Matt DiBenedetto in yesterday's Xfinity race. We'll talk about that more in the Xfinity portion of the show this evening. Overall, though, as to the race, kind of hopping around here a bit from the finish of the event, I felt very similar to Pocono in this one. Not just the fact that Briscoe pulled off the win as he did there. It seemed like it was very, very difficult to pass, but it didn't feel like it was Iowa difficult to pass, where, even if you caught up at the tail end of the field, you just couldn't get around people back there. Everybody kind of stacks up, and then maybe you'll have a pass for the lead just because everybody gets so close to each other, they're literally knocking each other out of the way. I don't think this was quite that bad. And I remember, I think when we talked about Pocono, you can rewatch this on the stream if I'm wrong. I remember at Pocono, I seemed to enjoy the finish of that well enough from the fuel mileage issue that was happening in there. It's like, oh, is Briscoe going to make it or not? But yeah, admittedly, in that race, you had a situation where, what was it, Denny Hamlin and somebody else, they were really able to kind of catch up to Briscoe, but just could not get around him. And for whatever reason, was just able to manipulate the air well enough. And with these cars being as sensitive as they are in those senses, just couldn't work their way around. But I think this was better than that. And I think we had a solid battle there at the end of this Darlington race. This track has always been, whatever car you're driving out there, it's always been a matter of just trying to hug that wall as close as you can without actually getting pulled into it. And, but then again, the closing laps, you want to push just that bit of a harder. And you're always worried about bouncing the thing off the wall and losing that ground again. And we saw, despite the fact that Briscoe dominated this race and led 309 of 367 laps, it very nearly went away. Very reminiscent of Denny Hamlin at Richmond back in 2008 when he almost led the entire distance of that race there before some issues. 19 car seemed like it was a bit of a handful, and when it was, Tyler Reddick was right on him. So, air issues or whatever, it still seemed like, a solid battle up there. And Eric Jones too. It seemed like they more or less stabilized their gap. I don't know how much of that, again, the aerodynamics of the car or the fact the tires are just wore out. They just couldn't do anything more with them. We saw Reddick make a pretty daring move through the last couple of quarters. Made a pretty aggressive attempt there at turns 3 and 4. Got alongside him at least to the left rear of it. Reddick still trying to bounce back from that disappointing loss that he had with Chris Buescher. I guess that was last year there, the spring race. Rough deal. Still comes away with it empty-handed with just a runner-up finish there. Margin of victory, 408 thousandths of a second. Just a little bit over 4/10 there at the finish line. But I thought they put on a good show, and I thought with 20 laps to go, that was going to be enough time where people could really bunch up and, try to gang up on Briscoe, despite the fact that he'd been as dominant as he had been. Now, I will say that the fact that it took that long and nobody really could get around each other, that may well have been the fault of the car there too. So, that's a bit frustrating. But I think the drivers were working within that paradigm. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm yawning so much tonight. Maybe that's betraying more of my feelings of this race than I'm letting on here. I don't know. I thought it was good. I thought it was compelling enough, but again, maybe it would have been great to see somebody make, a really, crazy move to try to actually get the lead, or it just made it seem like Briscoe was just, had this very well in hand and nobody was going to be able to do anything. But Jones, for example, earlier in the race, there was a moment, I think it was about 2/3 of the way in the event, that Jones was getting underneath the drivers that were going side by side going into turn 3 and was sticking his nose in there and trying to pull off kind of like the move that Kurt Busch used to get the lead here in 2003 before that famous finish with Ricky Craven. A much less acknowledged moment of that event was the fact that Jeff Gordon and Elliott Sadler were running side by side, and they did it so long that Busch got this massive run on him. I was glad to see that move was still possible. Even in this one here, even though in that case here, Jones didn't quite pull it off there, and admittedly did fall back, although there was a caution that came out about the same time that kind of screwed that up. But at the same time, he was making a real aggressive move, and seemed like, he mentioned in his post-race interview, it seemed like he had a faster car than either of the leaders. But it was a different kind of situation there for him. But one way or the other, again, it's another great chapter in what Legacy Motor Club has built this year. I remember, I can't help but mention it again, but I'll mention it again. Back at the Clash, when I was saying, like, look, you got John Hunter Nemechek is right up there. Eric Jones was about to win that last chance qualifier, and then he got spun. You got Nemechek getting a top 5, and it's too early to tell if they're doing good. And now all of a sudden, even today, where a playoff broadcast, and it's all about playoff storylines and who's good and who's bad and who's gaining points and who isn't, even they were doing a decent job. I'd say they gave them their flowers. I think they did a decent job talking about Legacy Motor Club. Maybe not so much more than they had in the regular season, but they didn't ignore them altogether. I'm not going to be, I think that would be inaccurate. I think that they were actually talking about him. I think Allmendinger got his flowers a lot tonight for the great run he was having in the top 5. It's just unfortunate that, we have this playoff element, and it's got to ramp things up so much more, and it's all about who's going to punch their ticket, who's going to get to the next round, and this guy's in trouble, he needs to get points, and he needs to win next week, and, as if they have any control over it, one of the many problems with this system. But some great runs, and I like that they actually kind of talked about them instead of something like where they felt like it was a distraction. It's like, we want to talk about the playoff things, but here's these other guys, and they're mixing it up. It's like, no, they had something to race for too. And, again, though that organization has made a lot of advancements, and they still have 9 more chances to try to get a win this year, wherever it is. And this, again, Eric Jones, probably less surprising for him as a 2-time Southern 500 winner, one of those with Legacy Motor Club a couple of years ago. But regardless, getting up there, finished within a half second of the leader. But John Hunter Nemechek, very impressed. It was just mentioned, Steve Toronto posted on Twitter here that this was the second time that he's got his career best finish this season on top of the Daytona 500, getting another top 5 here. I really didn't have much expectation for him in the 42 team here. But man, they really, really put together a phenomenal race. And we're matching Jones, pound for pound, getting up there into the top 10, staying up there, staying on the lead lap, doing everything you've got to do in whatever car at Darlington to compete. I thought they did a fine job with that there at the same time. Great efforts there. And then Allmendinger as well for all that's going on with Colleague, the unpredictability of this Ram deal with the Truck Series next year, and the struggles that their Xfinity programs had, especially with Christian Eckes. And Allmendinger's not been that spectacular all this year. Had some good runs, but had some engine failures. That was the same problem they were having last year. Great to see them. And to have this good of a run at this demanding of a track, that really speaks not only to the skill of the drivers, but the ability of these teams to put together a really good car. I mean, how many times did we hear about drivers having mechanical issues or, losing alternators or battery issues? It's such a demanding race, and it's not something you can back into at all. So again, I'm seeing this mentioned here in the chat as well. Congrats on again, Reddick for the saves that he made. I didn't mention this at the thing with Josh Berry, and it has to be mentioned though. That easily could have been a tremendous wreck with the Josh Berry one. That's the same corner every part of Darlington's treacherous, but turn 2, that was the one where Buckshot Jones bounced off the wall in 2002, right in front of, I believe Tony Stewart was leading at the time. Stewart plowed into him, and the rest of the field just piled in, and it was just a huge field-clearing mess. I can't imagine. I mean, this is probably an even more hazardous time. You get a third-place driver on the grid, spins out in front of the entire field at the part where Parker Kligerman very accurately described, where the track narrows down that little bit, and you just can't predict, the right path. Or I guess he was looking at 3 and 4, but it's pretty much, you can apply it to 1 and 2 at the same time. Getting off that corner, you just have nowhere to go and just pile into it. It's incredible that Berry was basically the only driver that was involved. I mean, there were some guys that bounced off each other. Kyle Busch spun out, had a little bit of damage to the fender. Looks like Reddick had a little bit of damage there to the door. Same thing with Chris Buescher. But other than that, really not any serious issues there for that. Berry kind of took the entire brunt of it. So tremendous effort, not just for Reddick, although his was the most dramatic, and the car getting full deadlock sideways there, and avoiding a serious incident, being able to salvage a second place finish out of it, very nearly having a chance to win it on a night where Briscoe was so dominant. Tremendous driving skill from the rest of the field there too. Even Derek Kraus, who was among your last place contestants there with the mechanical issues they had at the end, he locked it down to make sure he didn't pile into anybody else. And Kraus being one of the newer competitors in the field, that speaks well to him too. So a wild race. I mean, compare it to last year even, when you had the early accident with Martin Truex and Ryan Blaney that put Blaney in last place. In that one, was it Blaney? Yeah, I guess it was Blaney in that one. But a really crazy kind of situation there too. Seeing mentions here the 2004 wrecks as well with back at the Andy Hillenberg's incident with Tony Stewart there too. Again, I mean, this race and it even though this car runs slower, less horsepower or anything, somehow I don't know if this felt this way to you guys, but it felt like it went by quicker to me, certainly compared to last year, maybe even more than the last couple of years. So again, I'm not going to say that it's like, the most famous, incredible race ever, but I thought it was solid. I thought it was a solid one. I liked the storylines of the other teams that were getting into the mix of everything. I liked that there was still some unpredictability in the mechanical issues. And just seeing the determination of the Wood brothers to get that 21 car back out there and finish the race under power. Only the second time, I don't think I mentioned this, I mentioned on Twitter, but I don't think I mentioned on the show yet here. Only the second time in the entire history of Darlington that a Cup Series last place finisher finished the race under power. And the only other time that happened was in a rain-shortened 400-mile race back in 1999 when Ken Schrader got involved in an early wreck, came back out, was, I believe, about 80 laps down in that event. And that was the race you may remember from the Kenny Irwin Jr. video, where Kenny and Ricky Craven had crashed out right before the rain came, and Jeff Burton, who was in the booth, was leading the race, got pinned into the outside wall. Luckily, the rain came before he had to make any repairs. He still got the victory in a rain-shortened event. It was that event. That was the only other time that a last-place finisher finished the race under power. And this even more extraordinary because old Barry was even more laps down, but obviously as a playoff contender, they're going to throw everything at that to try to get every point, and indeed going for that 1-point bonus there was something else they were certainly looking at. So, again, I love good storylines. I love, people trying to, really contend for the lead. It would have been, I would think, again, in a perfect world, in those last 20 laps, we would have seen just absolutely phenomenal racing for the lead battle. It just seemed like more of it was managing just those gaps and trying to chisel a little bit of it away. Maybe a consequence of the, how much parity is in the sport these days, the turbulence of these cars and how much it favors a leader, and so forth. But I think that with this car, that was probably about as good as a finish you're going to get at Darlington when you have that many drivers that are that close to get together at the end. Certainly in the top four, arguably even the top five. Well, no, not top five. Allmendinger was about 6 seconds back. But certainly the top four were right there together. And if anything happened, if one of them slipped, that was the thing that encouraged me so much was when Briscoe started slipping a little bit, it's not like he still had that big lead over Reddick. Reddick was right on him, and it looked like he was going to get right by him or through him there. And if he did that, Jones was going to try to follow his way through. But Briscoe did a great job reeling it back in, and that was about the time he was kind of getting into the tail end of the lead lap traffic and had a good battle. So I was pleased. I thought the battle was pretty engaging there at the end. So it could always be better. It certainly should be better, but good effort. Excuse me. While I'm at it here, a little bit of follow-up from our show last week. I want to give big thanks to Josh. I did get his sticker, which is on the old water bottle this week. So there we go. We got it. Oh, try to get a little closer on the screen. There you go. Got the Josh's Eggs logo on the old red water bottle there. So definitely want to make sure to show that this week's. Big thanks to Josh there for sharing that. I understood he was at the races there this weekend. It was sharing some pictures there as well. So there we go. Looking at the rest of the top 10, Bubba Wallace, great run for him. Denny Hamlin in the 7th spot there. You expect him to be more of a top 5 driver, just didn't quite have it today. Kyle Busch, great recovery from the first lap wreck. Had relatively minor contact, but lost a lot of track position. Got that back into the 8th spot. Carson Hocevar, whenever he runs that Chili's paint scheme, it seems like that those seem to be the best runs that he always has, except for that, I guess, that Michigan race where they had the engine failure there towards the end. Or was it a flat tire engine? Either one. The one that he dropped out towards the end of the race, where he had kind of a whole streak of races that kind of slipped through his fingers there. But back at Bristol earlier this year in the spring race, he was very good in that car. And here again, and made some just crazy moves. He, much like Jones, was trying to actually kind of dive bomb into turn 1, which seems even riskier, at least with the narrower turning radius of 3 and 4. It seems like guys are sometimes able to work that off. But 1 and 2, it's really, really hazardous because you just got to keep turning and turning through there. And it's just not going to quite work out there for him. But he kept the thing in one piece. Seemed really frustrated about how the car was handling, but it seemed like he wasn't alone in that respect either. And had that other incident with Chase Elliott where things checked up behind Austin Cindric. Came out there with a 9th place finish. Fine effort for him. So that was good to see. And this is a track that rewards patience and, saving your equipment and not just wrecking people out of the way. The track will bite you just as easily as any place else. But I thought he did a fine job out there. And again, maybe Bristol in a couple weeks returning there. If anybody can pry it from Kyle Larson with the issues that this car had back in the spring race, maybe he could be a factor there too. So we'll find out. And Chris Buescher, touched on him a little bit earlier as being one of the drivers that kind of bounced off each other in the situation there with Josh Berry at the very beginning, coming back to finish in the 10th spot. Ross Chastain was able to stretch the final 2 laps that he needed after almost running out of fuel to finish in the 11th position. Not the run that he wanted to have there after leading 3 laps and looking like he was going to potentially match his top 5 run from this race last year. He was one driver I felt like the camera was watching more than anybody else. It got to the point where I kept looking at his car and trying to figure out if that was a horse on the side of it or something else. It was kind of every time I saw it, I thought they had just kind of he had damage or something, and they had a random bit of tape on the side of the car there. But regardless, an 11th place finish there for him, keeping him in the upper part of the schedule there. We'll see how things shake out for him. This was mentioned on Front Row Motorsports as well. Zane Smith and Noah Gragson very nearly in the top 10 in this race, finishing 13th and 14th. So fine jobs for them, especially Gragson. He's just had a really difficult year this season. Obviously with everything that's going on with Front Row Motorsports in 2311 with the lawsuit, I'm sure that hasn't helped. But at the same time, decent run there at again, very demanding track. Brad Keselowski was at the bottom of the field for a lot of this race, had a loose wheel, had to stop in Joey Logano's pit stall to tighten it, had to serve a penalty, was multiple laps down, comes back and finishes on the lead lap at 15th. Of course, past Darlington winner, won the Southern 500, won the spring race last year. Again, maybe not the finish that he wanted, but again, a better finish than he was headed to in the very beginning of this event. Ryan Blaney spun out at one point there, finishing in the 18th position. Kyle Larson in 19th brought out the Terry Labonte 2003 throwback there that Larson had a infamously bad run with in the spring race this year. If there's one thing that screams last car, it would definitely be this paint scheme. That on top of the fact that it was also the last time that this race was run in August. It was pointed out, I think NASCAR Man History pointed this out, that the last 3 times that the Southern 500 was run in August was won by a Hendrick driver. Odds of that are pretty good because that's when you had Jeff Gordon's dominance and the rise of Jimmy Johnson, and then even back to Tim Richmond's day. Ultimately, Johnson wasn't one of those 3 winners. It was Terry Labonte in 03 that was the last of those back then. And that doesn't feel that long ago, but you watch footage from that race and you realize how long ago that actually has been. But Larson, not really as much of a factor in this one, finishing in the 19th spot. Joey Logano in 20th. Byron in 21st. I mean, other drivers just really, really struggling. Austin Dillon was last bro's pick to win this race. I thought that was going to be actually kind of a good pick. Maybe get a top 10 or maybe something even better, especially after winning at Richmond not long ago. This time around, really wasn't in the cards. Finished 29 seconds back in the 23rd position there. Daniel Suarez, first car 1 lap down. Going further back, Riley Herbst back in the 28th spot, finishing ahead of Shane Van Gisbergen in the Rookie of the Year battle, although that battle is now over with Van Gisbergen getting the 4 wins and making the playoffs, whereas Herbst did not win and finished last in the Daytona cutoff race and is eliminated in that. Incidentally, I do want to mention, I'm going to kind of jump a little bit out of order here. At the same time, I want to thank the folks over the Riley Herbst team. I wanted to pick up one of Riley's hats because I thought it looked pretty cool. So they had like the logo on it there and the 35, and I like this trend that they have with hats these days where they have kind of that waffling that's printed into it, so it's a bit more breathable. But I thought this was pretty hip. But it was very nice of them. They threw in another hat with it, with the Stuart Haas deal there, and had him autograph that too. So I thought that was really cool. I sent them a thank you message there as well, but I want to make sure to mention that on the show here at the same time. So kudos to the folks over at 2311 and particularly Riley Herbst group there as well that sent that out there. So I want to make sure we had that on that. Let's see. At the same time here, looking at more of the results. Yeah, that's mostly what I got. Michael McDowell, I'm just looking at him. 2 laps down in the 33rd spot. I mean, this is a track that's kind of had his number. You think back to when he made the playoffs in 2021, and he had that wreck at the very beginning, and it just pretty much just drop kicked him out of the championship at that point. Some other difficult runs even further back in his career in the start and park eras. But yeah, this time around, yeah, he really wasn't a factor, and that's kind of strange seeing that at the same time. Let's see. Looking at it here, finding out the rest of that. That's mostly what I have on the Cup Series race here. I feel like I'm missing other elements of it, but again, this is always a race that kind of circle on the calendar. There's always one, I love the atmosphere. It's so great to have that race back on Labor Day weekend. It looked like they had a great crowd, and apparently from the broadcast, they had great weather, which is very rare. I mean, there's been so many races, especially when this was still a day race. Obviously it starts in the day, but ends at night. But back when it was like the dead of the afternoon, it would be absolutely brutal. The years we went in 17 and 19, even in 19 when it was raining and you had that hurricane that was approaching, so they had to rush and get the race in very late at night. It was very muggy out there, so it's an experience. But if you've never been to Darlington, definitely recommend it. It's a beautiful track. They got great staff over there. I know the media center there is kind of small, but I'm sure that's something they're working on. I found it more than adequate. I mean, you could, for what I do with this, especially for how often I'm in the garage area, you can give me a card table in the corner and I can make that work. So, hopefully we'll be doing that again very soon. Phoenix for the championship race is now, we're down to the last 9 races of the year, just a couple of months away. So we're getting ready for that. And we'll be doing another door magnet and the trackside coverage there too. So we'll have some more information on that as well. Bowser Jr. XD, I see your comments here as well, and I saw you later here in the show. Again, very much enjoyed the Cup Series run. Yeah, he had the gold car, Marcus, at Michigan, didn't he? Have the Ziegler one? I know he didn't have the Chili's one in that one, but I remember picking him for that race, and then it looked like he was going to maybe get it, and then didn't quite shake out. Again, I think Darlington, remember, I know that, things could be better with this car, but I remember even with the car tomorrow, and that seemed to be kind of one that was trying to foil the track and no longer be as demanding, because the car tomorrow could just bounce off the wall any number of times and had so much foam in the doors and the fenders never crinkled or anything that people just used it up. I mean, you watch the race in 2008 and they're just hitting the wall so many times and they just keep going and like nothing happened. It's still a really demanding track, and we still had that aspect of it here tonight. So I thought that was a fine deal. And then again, some interesting last place intrigue to throw on top of that. We'll jump into the Xfinity and Truck Series action later on in the show. We'll do some trivia here and talk about some of the other news stories from the week. I guess we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the latest developments in the 2311 and Front Row lawsuit, especially the messages that were sent back and forth. I'm still brushing up on all the context on that. It doesn't surprise me that it's an adversarial system. And seeing some of these statements in there, we'll get into that a little bit later here in the show. For now, we'll turn back the clock a little bit to the Xfinity Series race and the Truck Series action there from yesterday. So getting into that, Connor Zilic, absolutely tremendous effort out there. The Hurt So Good 2.0 race there, where they had t-shirts already printed with the date on it, anticipating that he would be as fast as he would be at Portland for this road course just 3 weeks after his frightening fall from the side of the car at Watkins Glen from his victory there. Just 1 week after Parker Kligerman, his co-driver, won his only Xfinity race as his relief driver there in the 88 car. Goes out there and pulls off this win. I mean, it's amazing the confidence that there was around this effort there. I mean, obviously, Connor Zilic is going to be very, very strong in any road course. Doubly so since Shane Van Gisbergen's not going to be in the race to mix things up as he had at Watkins Glen or at Sears Point, where we saw just those great rivalries and great battles out there. Hopefully we're heading towards another one of those at the Roval here later this year on the Xfinity Series side. But the confidence that they didn't even have a backup driver for him, that Parker Kligerman was still back in Charlotte broadcasting this race for Portland. Kligerman, of course, would have been another great choice for a relief driver if he needed to have one. That they had these shirts printed just in case that he did pull off this win. And with knowing that you have all these late race restarts and, where it just seemed like it was designed to have him lose the race. Indeed, Austin Hill. He's un-Austin Hillable. Isn't that incredible? Austin Hill gets the lead from Zilich there towards the end. It looks like, he's gonna pull it off again, and he's gonna back into one of these wins. But he didn't. And Zilich, with damage to the right rear of the car, stayed right with him. And then you had another restart, which you may not have needed, but got the lead back. And there's a lot of criticism about the chicane there and going through the A-frames there. In that first corner there on the front straightaway. I can hardly fault that. He followed the rules. He did exactly what Chase Elliott's team did so well in 2020, where he had that crew member that reestablished his position, and also got the help from NASCAR not calling that yellow line penalty that he had at Talladega around the exact same time. But in this case here, he went right through it, and he had to go through it so many times in the race that he got really good at getting through there. And there's people drawing comparisons to the Ross Chastain thing where, yeah, he was on this complete runoff road and sped back in, into traffic. Were they ever going to treat that as a legitimate move back into traffic? Of course they weren't. But in this one here, he followed the rules and he did it. And that chicane, honestly, it's just so absurd. No matter what series is in there, it's always going to be a crash magnet. And doubly so when you got Austin Hill in the mix that was blocking some other guy exiting that corner. I don't know what he was thinking. Again, I think also, if somehow they did get through there and Zilich just was boxed in and he had to bail out there, if Sammy Smith didn't spin in that last corner, we might not be talking about the same story. They might have actually had a chance at getting back up there. William Sawalich got out of that corner very, very quickly and probably would have been neck and neck with Zilich, if not maybe just ahead of him. And then who knows what would have happened from there, because Zilich was driving like a man possessed in the ARCA West race out there when he was plowing through the field there too. So very similar to what he did at Sears Point back in July here. But regardless, again, there was all this that was going on at the same time. But Zilich did a tremendous job and did pull off the victory. And very impressed. It was an enjoyable watch there in that Xfinity race. Still wish they would have radio traffic or officials radio for these standalone events. It's really, really difficult to follow these races for the last place deal. This one would have been really compelling because much like tonight's race, we had a last place finisher that finished the race under power. Luckily, a lot of the teams were actually following what was happening in the garage area pretty close. We saw Dean Thompson have issues, and then we saw Vicente Salas in his second series start drop out of the into the garage area for a while. But then Salas coming back out of the garage area with about 12 laps to go and actually finishing the race under power. Didn't quite catch up to the car in front of him there with Alex Labay and Will Brown dropping out. Kind of similar again to tonight with what happened with Josh Berry. But again, a fine effort for the Alpha Prime team to really just get the most laps they can get the most experience they can get. It's only a second series start. They're trying to get the best run they can. I think that was a tremendous effort. Another driver that really, kind of touched on this too, and we'll talk about it now, the Matt DiBenedetto deal. What a frightening situation that he had. And unbelievably, he got back in the car after this fire. I mean, he had this very harrowing clip that he posted on Twitter earlier today of kind of his post-race debrief. And he still looked pretty shell-shocked there after that one. I mean, this is, again, much like we saw with Derek Kraus earlier tonight, and I sound alarmist every time I bring this up, but in whatever era there is in the sport, fire is like one of the biggest concerns these drivers have. And it's just as present now as it's ever been. And I've felt before that it's been something peculiar to the Cup Series car because we did have so many incidents here. But this one now with the Xfinity car, I hope they figured out whatever was going on there. If there was fire completely around his feet and his shoelaces are getting stuck on the brake pedal and he's having trouble getting out of that car, there's a lot of things that need to be figured out on that. I have no idea how that happened or anything. Um, it seemed perplexing from watching it live where he was already out of the car and checking his feet. And it seemed like there was a lot of, speculation about what was happening. But that needs to be figured out. We talk about things that NASCAR needs to take very, very seriously. And I'm sure the team is as well. But I'm stunned that he went back out there. Maybe they just, they figured they were going to gain a couple of spots, which they did and got around Will Brown and Alex LeBay. But I'm still kind of amazed that they did, because I fully expected, especially once he jumped out, it seems like in the past when a driver jumps out of the car, I mean, that's kind of it. I guess we had that situation at Richmond where, gosh, was that a fire too? We had a Truck Series situation. That's right. Dawson Sutton had a fire at Richmond a couple of weeks ago, bailed out of the truck. And I don't know if he got back in there and actually ran more laps or anything, but I mean, kind of that situation too. I don't remember if that was the same situation where it was around the floorboard. I think it was a short circuit in the dashboard and there was just smoke in the cockpit there in that case. I have to look it up again on that. But whatever these causes are, these cars are supposed to have onboard fire extinguishers. Why aren't they going off? I mean, if you got fire around the dude's feet, that thing should be filled with just a cloud of that stuff at that point. It shouldn't get to that point. It shouldn't get to the point where the guy's starting to think he might have a real difficult time getting out of there. So something just was not right. And I hope that's treated as seriously as that was. I hope it doesn't just get, laughed off and it's like, well, that's a crazy thing that happened. It's like, no, these are the things to be looked at. I wish NASCAR cared half as much about fires in these cars as they do about these cars flipping. I mean, they're throwing everything at it to, it was like, well, we can't have these cars flip. You got even Dale Jr. saying that it's inevitable that they're going to, and I think the A-pillar, flap is a cool idea or anything. But let's not overlook this part too, because this is, especially if it's being present in other series besides the Cup Series here. So I think it's another one to look at, but I'm glad he's okay. He did post that on the message there, and it's on to the next race here for the Viking Motorsports effort. But definitely a concerning one there at the same time. He ends up your 34th place finisher. Anthony Alfredo completing the bottom five with some transmission failure at the end of the race. But Vicente Salas ends up being his first last place finish in the Xfinity Series and only his second start. That article is already featured on the website there if you haven't checked it out. You'll get some more information there at the same time. The lack of competitive pit stops. Matt Jones, seeing your comment on that. Yeah, same thing. I mean, like we had the issues at Lime Rock there this year. I know logistically, maybe it was a difficult situation. It's kind of strange that they did this on the calendar. They put this race so late in the year during Darlington weekend when they've had Xfinity races at Darlington. It seemed like that would have been much easier to set up. This maybe feels like maybe they just this is the one weekend they had left open and they just kind of put it there. I'm glad they still had the race. I know some of the drivers aren't really too crazy about, some of these teams are not as crazy about actually going out there and traveling that far and for all that. But, it's an interesting venue, regardless. But, again, kind of a solid event there, at least to the front of the pack there. So many drivers running off course, though. That turn 11 there, that double apex corner there that they go around there has always been so much of a problem. And then just practically a beach out there with the dry grass. That's the other element to talk about too. We got to talk about, the grass fire they had out there. I'll tell you what, for living in Northern California, or California in general, and knowing how very quickly a fire can get out of control. We actually had one that wasn't too far from here, Lascar headquarters, a bit northeast of us. Thankfully, the folks over at CAL FIRE and the air tankers and stuff took care of that. That's a scary moment there too. Again, fires, there was this common thread here of just treating fire so casually here. I don't think that was so much a case in Derek Krause's one there. I think they did a great job of getting him out of the car, and they extinguished that car pretty quickly. But leaving that grass fire burn was a bit troubling too. I know it was pretty far off the track surface, and the network did a decent job of showing how far it was from there. I didn't like that the booth was playing into it. I know they were doing it remotely, but I didn't like that they were kind of making excuses there and saying, oh, well, it's pretty far from the track surface, and maybe the smoke is just going that way. It'd be nice if they just, treat that a little bit more serious. Like, yeah, they probably should do something about that. We've had fires where, didn't we have that race at Kansas where like a car caught on fire in the parking lot and the smoke started wafting over the track and they had to throw a caution for that? That kind of stuff happens. And, they keep, I didn't like how casual the broadcast honestly was being about saying, oh, well, yeah, it's been a couple weeks since they've had any rain and they've had a little bit of a grass fire, but, they're not throwing a caution for it. It's like, well, they probably should. I mean, it would be nice if somebody was a little bit more sane in this sense to bring it up. I mean, was it going to set the whole track on fire? No, but you don't want to be that casual about it. And indeed, they did get a tanker out there that took care of it. But just do that. I don't like excuses being made for things like that. I think that's a compelling enough situation there too. So thankfully, it wasn't any bigger than it was, in spite of what was going on there at the same time. We did have some newcomers in the field there. We had Takuma Koga from the West Series make his Xfinity debut. Unfortunately, end up losing a lap in the opening stages there and finished the race 29th place, about 3 laps down at the finish, but did finish the race under power. So kudos to him. He's been in the series forever. He's come up to Sears Point. I think his career goes back to 2002 or something. Doing the entry list storylines for this race in Portland this week was really fun to do because there was such an international contingent, so many road course specialists that were taking part in it. Jack Perkins was so good in this race, getting up into the top 5 there. I didn't have high expectations for him after that disastrous run he had at the Chicago Street Course. It seemed like he hit everything but the jackpot there. But in this one here, he was right up there in the Shaw and Partners entry. Looked like he was going to have a good shot at finishing up there. Maybe didn't have anything for Zilich. Nobody really did. But unfortunately had an issue there in turn 11. Couldn't get the spot. That was good to see after he had that great run in the ARCA West race at Sears Point. Almost took the victory there from Sawalich there at the finish. He did slip back a little bit in the running order, but did finish the race on the lead lap in the 20th place there. So fine effort for him. Jeremy Clements with a 17th place run there for his organization is good to see. Brennan Poole was almost in the top 10 there, end up in the 13th spot there for the Operation 300 deal. That was Operation 300 being Taylor Gray, Freedom Pro being the sponsor for Brennan Poole this week. Harrison Burton, I thought he was completely out to lunch in this from how many incidents he had. I figured he was like 5 laps down by the end, but here he is on the lead lap in the 12th spot there, right behind Daniel Dye, coming from 26th. And then, yes, I saw this mentioned in chat, and it does have to be mentioned here too. Great run for Jordan Anderson Racing. All 3 of their cars, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Jeb Burton, Austin Green, with the help of the Peterson Racing Group, and then Blaine Perkins in 9th. Fine job for all 3 of them. Perkins in particular, we've seen him kind of struggle a bit this year, but good to see him get a fine run out there. He always seems to be, having some good runs at the road courses. Austin Green is just very, very consistent. He's kind of like right where he's one of those guys, kind of like Preston Pardis, where you can just kind of expect them to have good runs. Alex LeBay, too, although LeBay this time around, fuel pump failed him on the 07 car, but usually you see him up front and contesting for at least top 10 finishes there. I love the talent that's in the road course races this year. It's not just all Van Gisbergen and Zilich. It's way, way more than that, and we're starting to get a good view of that. And best of all, no Cup Series regulars in this one. So I thought that was an enjoyable race there too. Certainly had its issues along the way, but Zilich, tremendous effort for him. Proud of him on that. That was very, very enjoyable. Man, it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do in this stretch run of the season there as their playoffs begin. So we'll find out there. Christian Eckes also the 4th place finish. After the season he's had, I mean, they'll take top 5s where they can get them. So good effort there for him as well. Going back to the Truck Series again, I think the kind of a question is probably going forward, who's going to win more races at the end of this season? Is it going to be Corey Heim in the Truck Series, or is it going to be Connor Zilich in the Xfinity Series? You can find out one way or the other. I think a pretty good argument can be made for either of them here. Corey Heim cruising at Darlington there. This one here, I felt a little bit more disengaged by it because it just went by so quickly. Felt like when I was starting to kind of get comfortable with it, it was already almost over. But a couple of great runs here throughout the field. Trevor Bayne in the 5th place finish, a rare Truck Series start for him, for the driver turned broadcaster, of course, 2011 Daytona 500 winner. Bayne gets a 5th place finish. And then how about Timmy Hill? Hill was on a massive charge out there. He was fastest in practice. He was about 12th place with about 50 laps to go, clawed his way into the top 10, just got around Corey Day before the finish. They were within about 1/10 of a second of each other, according to the NASCAR.com leaderboard. And Hill gets an 8th place finish for his team, which just has a small group out there. And luckily, the race was over so quick that FS1 actually did their job and actually did some interviews throughout the field, not just focusing on the playoffs, but giving Timmy Hill his moment there to thank his group there. Great effort, great effort. I know Timmy didn't get as much of a, wasn't as visible tonight in the Southern 500. 66 car lost a lot of laps on pace out there. But regardless, a fine effort there for his truck team. We'll see what the rest of their schedule is. They kind of having the same deal, I guess, that BJ McLeod has had with scaling back his Cup team by Hill just running kind of part-time. It seems like they really capitalize on their best tracks. Excuse me. But Darlington being one of his best tracks, he's had a couple other top 10s here. Just really shows up out there. So it's good to see for sure. At the other end of the field, it ends up being another short afternoon for Josh Riome's team. You have Steve Malazzi and Clayton Green in the bottom 2 spots. Green gets his 2nd consecutive last place finish, an early exit for the first 4 laps for both of them. This began a very interesting first stage, I'd say, before the race kind of stretched out towards the end. The first stage was quite good. Had a lot of unpredictability out there. Chandler Smith with a flat tire, bounced off the wall a second time. Just after losing the lead, ends up back in the 30th spot. Matt Mills into the outside wall. Mechanical issues for Nathan Bird, sending him behind the wall. Looking to get back out there. At that point, I kind of thought Malazzi and Green would maybe come back out and gain a couple spots because they weren't too far behind these guys that were having problems. Ultimately, that wasn't the case. They were pretty much declared out about the same time that Chandler Smith was there. But a lot of unpredictable aspects there. Caden Honeycutt, I felt terrible for him. He was jazzed up about getting a good start here to this stretch run of the season. Unfortunately, he had multiple incidents out there, finished the 18th spot, tail end of the lead lap there at the checkered flag. So a rough deal for him. We'll see if he can pick things up the rest of the season there too. But I thought that was a really interesting first stage in particular. It was very unpredictable at that point. I didn't understand why the booth sounded so disengaged. It sounded like they were just not even there. I don't entirely understand why it came off that way, especially if we're talking the playoffs. It's like, oh, the playoffs are started, and these are playoff drivers that are having problems, and they might not make it. It's like, I get that you don't have to treat it like it's the end of the world, but you don't just treat it like, oh, I stubbed my toe. It's like, it's a little bit more than that. I found that so underwhelming, and it was so frustrating because, like, man, that first part of it, they just kind of guffaw about it. It's like, oh, there's a whole lot happening. Yeah, why don't you tell us about some of it? Why don't you tell us what some of it means? How about that? It's like, I know that there's like this parallel universe now where social media and all that seems like it kind of fills in those gaps for you. And, that's great and that's fine and everything. But that doesn't relieve them of the duty of doing that. We're only too much further before AI is going to start taking over these broadcasts here. And then you're really going to have a problem. I don't see why we have to further that so much by just having this bare minimum. I don't know what's going on there. And now we got this next year where the Truck Series is going to pair up with IndyCar at St. Petersburg. And, they seem really excited about IndyCar and less so about NASCAR. But why this crossover? It's like, I know they're going to be much more passionate about one versus the other. I don't know where we're going with this, but hopefully something works out. So we'll see. I liked a lot of the throwback schemes that were in this race, even though it's not traditionally throwback weekend here for the Truck Series. but not being a part of the spring race. Good to see him back out there. The McAnally team had some beautiful trucks out there. Loved seeing the 98 Kenny Wallace scheme out there for Connor Mosack. We see the Dick Trickle throwback for Ben Rhodes, the Gray Ghost there for Daniel Hemrick. And then even the Joshua Ilms team with Mason Maggio running the Michael Waltrip throwback, the Aaron's Dream Machine. Get well soon to Frankie Muniz, was supposed to be running that race. Unfortunately, fell off a ladder, fixing a ring camera at his home in Arizona, and broke his wrist, which put him out of the truck, forced a shuffling of the order there at the Josh's team, and actually put Clayton Green back in the field where he wouldn't have been ordinarily. But Maggio ends up in the 26th spot, out with handling issues there on the number 33. So an unfortunate end of the day there. And hopefully Frankie will be back in the series here pretty soon. So we'll find out at that end. So again, a little bit of everything there in the truck race. Again, I thought the opening of it was pretty crazy. And I was tracking that as best I could here from here at Last Car headquarters. But Heim, again, is inevitable and finds his way up there, pulling off the victory there at the same time. Good job by Grant Enfinger getting third. The CR7 team still staying in the fight there, and other competitors there at the same time. So we'll see where everybody else shakes out. Raja Karuth outside the top 10. We'll see if things can kind of pick up there for him as well. Other competitors, Lane Riggs, your pole sitter, ends up back in the 17th position after leading 71 laps, so some bad luck there too. And then Matt Crafton towards the end of his retirement season in the 21st spot. Giovanni Ruggiero has really kind of picked things up here the last few weeks. He's kind of the rookie contender that gets the most attention. This time around ends up back in the 22nd position there. And then so forth back through the lineup. Bailey Curry back with the Al Nice effort these last couple of weeks. That reunion we haven't really seen like a really, really strong run out of it. I was hoping things were going to kind of, maybe that tide would lift all boats there at the same time. I'm not happy about how things ended between the Nice team and Honeycutt. But I'm glad to see Honeycutt laying on his feet there with the Stuart Friesen effort and doing the best he can out there. I just wish the 45 was going to be doing well there with Curry, because they had a good thing going at the same time, and it just haven't seen as much of that so far. Mike Harmon's effort back out there in the 28th spot. Caleb Costner sounded really frustrated on the radio there. Had a couple trips to the garage area before falling out of the event there in the 28th spot. But the team doing the best they can with the former G2G Motorsports effort, that old Toyota that they're driving out there. G2G Racing, I believe, actually, for that effort at the tail end. And that was the Sober Slammer 200 for the Truck Series, and that was pretty much the action this week. Wow, I thought I was blitzing through them a lot quicker, but I guess not. We're already at about an hour into the show here. But again, I think it's a solid enough weekend. I was pretty entertained. I think having the Truck Series race early in the morning gave me some nice flashbacks to the way the Cup races used to be. Getting up at about 9 or 9:30 here Pacific time to watch a race out here. And that was pretty cool to see. NASCAR Classics was really, really good this week. I loved their social media where they were posting those clips of they even had the footage of the 1991 Trans-South 500 of the field rolling off. And you can see J.D. McDuffie's car at the back of the field where everybody had their names on the car at the same time. H.B. Bailey and Dave Mater III and some of these other obscure drivers in there. I love that they're scratching that itch and really showing some of this great footage. I mean, they released that clip of Greg Sachs' car after his big wreck at Watkins Glen a couple weeks ago. It happened in 92, but released a couple weeks ago. Yeah, again, I think it was a solid deal this week, and we'll see what happens in Gateway next week and the stretch part of the season here. So we'll see what's happening. But congratulations to the winner. Do we have a call on inspection yet? I don't believe we do. Let's see here. Nope, we see. Okay, we got the ARC results from DuQuoin. So we got that sorted out there as well. Yeah, point standings. Don't see an update here, at least not on Pockrace's list here. But again, yeah, dominant victory for Chase Briscoe, pending, of course, the results of post-race inspection. And still, again, Josh Berry listed as your last place finisher. Kind of catching up on this. I didn't watch the Formula One race today. I understood that was that sounded like a real barn burner there as well. What was it? Ollie Bierman got a podium. Who was that? Was it it was one of the Cash App Red Bull ones. I remembered that. Was it Bierman or was that somebody else? I got to look it up. I didn't have that ready here on this, but I guess I can look at the rest of it. Nope, still got the Hungarian Grand Prix on here, racing reference. I think it was. Let's see, it was here in that. Oh, Hajar, Isaac Hajar. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Bowser. Yes, there you go. So, yeah, tremendous effort there, too. Seems like this season's had a little bit more unpredictability, at least on the podium there. This and the Nico Hulkenberg deal. I'm no Formula One expert, but I appreciate the information here, Bowser. I see your information on that. This one today, Formula One from Zandvoort. This from Bowser Jr. XD. Lewis Hamilton crashed in the outside wall in turn 3 on lap 22. He now holds the record for most starts with Ferrari without a podium. And IndyCar at Nashville today. Again, the championship weekend there, so congratulations. I know Alex Palou already clinched the championship there, but hey, still have a season finale to be run, and sounded like they put on a good show out there. Christian Rasmussen, your last place finisher, wrecked on the first lap after getting loose. A brutal roller coaster after winning last week at Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Mile. So again, yeah, Bowser, thank you for your notes there on that at the same time. Let's see. Yeah, kind of checking out all of this. Well, we got football season starting next week. The NFL season back up. We'll have to bring out the Bills stuff back again and find out how that season's going to be going. So we'll see. New Garden for the win. Yep, there we go, Andrew. I see that comment there on that as well for the IndyCar race itself. Championship sewn up at the win. Again, going for the win should be the best thing. The championship takes care of itself. Whoever has the best overall season, that's where the championship should be. It actually kind of deserves to be in the background a little bit. It just kind of gets gradually talked about more the closer somebody is to actually locking it up. That's the way it should be. It doesn't need to be a whole reset. It doesn't need to be something that jars you out of this. It doesn't need to be, and it certainly doesn't need to be lurking around in the background of every win. You know, you would hope that you have a good season, but maybe you've had some bad runs. And, you know, I think DNF should matter again. So hopefully we kind of get back towards that. I think the DVP regulation changes are probably going to be something that's going to help that out in the long run. Again, hopefully that gets adopted in Xfinity and the Truck Series here as well. Let's see. Okay, I talked about that. So we got into that. Let me see. Let me get into the super chats here. I saw a couple here, so I want to make sure I get into that. There it is. Michael Jensen for $2. Thank you for your super chat here on this. Kudos to Jordan Anderson Racing, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Absolutely agree. Yeah, great effort. Jordan is so personable. I've always seen him over at the racetrack there. I know they've gone through a lot with that program. I remember when that 31 car broke down there at Texas a couple years ago. We were covering it, but they got that car back out there, got the best run they could. Back this year where Jeb Burton was so close to winning at Talladega. And indeed, a lot of those camera angles did seem to show that 27 car was back out front. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And we've seen also Austin Green's great runs. I talked about Blaine Perkins a little bit earlier on that. Great effort for a great team, and having them, that close together in such a unusual race where you have non-competitive stops. It's on the other side of the country, and it's kind of smashed into that little gap there before the playoffs start there for the Xfinity Series. I think it was challenging for a number of aspects, but they did a fine job under the circumstances. So definitely agree with that. Bowser Jr. XD, again, thank you for your super chat. For $5 on here. A thought from my friends. Rumors of IndyCar joining NASCAR at Phoenix in March. Could be NASCAR showing the judge they don't monopolize tracks. Well, that's very interesting. And this kind of dovetails into kind of more the updates on the lawsuit from this past week. Yeah, I mean, maybe, maybe there is some maneuvering that's intentional for that. And maybe that's the same thing about, them branching over into IndyCar. And, although I guess the St. Petersburg one, maybe that sounds more like something the network's doing there. But you're right. I mean, yeah, maybe if there's something with Phoenix, and expanding that into an IndyCar event there with that, maybe there's something that could, come from that too. But, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, I mean, there's, I guess we can go ahead and jump into this here at this point. Obviously, things got heated for sure from what we hear from the media members that were present at the hearing that was this week, between some messages that were sent out, between some emails and some text messages from 2311, emails from NASCAR, these people saying this people saying that. I'm still brushing up on, I still feel like I need more context to really make full sense of what's there. I feel like we're only getting kind of a little bit of a glimpse into, these messages there. I think there's certainly things that both sides could certainly use against each other. That's the effect of discovery. We talked about the discovery process here on the show, in our very, very small legal segment here on the show. But in terms of the language, a lot of people got hung up on the language of this. The statement about like, oh, Jim France dying is probably, the only, result from this or anything like that. From what I saw from just the context of this, you got two sides that are upset. You got sides that are upset. That's why they're doing this lawsuit. Nobody does a lawsuit because they're, everything's going right and everybody's happy. And maybe I'm just desensitized to it because, I've been around the legal profession and sorting through documents and going to these depositions and stuff in cases that we've dealt with on this end here. As to if anything's the smoking gun in this case, to saying, oh, yep, there's proof of it or something like that. I haven't seen that as much yet, but I very well may be reading this too narrowly. So it's hard to say, but it doesn't, I'm not surprised that there's a lot of vitriol between, both sides. Yeah, again, that's where this is coming from. And, it's the same thing that, we talk about tonight when we're talking about, what the protocol is with these onboard fires in the cars themselves, things competition related. Sebastian LaForge had a great post there on Twitter earlier today about, where's this, this laxity when it comes to cautions not coming out, like how we had at Daytona where you had single car spins and it seemed like, okay, that makes sense. Because, it's probably not gonna be a situation where you have a big wreck or something like that. But then, at the same time, we have even grass fires they're not throwing cautions for, or like other things out there. What's going on. We never really hear from NASCAR what the actual strategy is. And, we talked about this even with the Mamba Smith deal last week, to at least hear what their thought process is, and this is not a new thing. NASCAR has been very much like this where, it's so difficult to understand what they're doing. There's not that much transparency. You don't hear exactly what's going on. You, me, anybody else, we don't really get a peek behind the curtain. And this time we did this week. And I think that was the interesting part, from these messages is showing that, yeah, there's a bit of chaos on both sides. And there's a bit of unpredictability where they are trying to figure each other out and see, where things are headed there, at the same time. I think, it's been frustrating following this case because whatever I hear from NASCAR on their side, it sounds like, they're trying to put forward that they don't know what the teams are actually suing for, and, kind of go in that direction. But undoubtedly, there were messages behind the scenes. They're trying to kind of, work things out. And yeah, there's some incendiary language in there, that I'm sure that probably was not anticipated by either party, to have seen the light of day. But again, how much that's going to be moving the needle, I don't know. I feel like I don't have enough in front of me. I'm still kind of brushing up on it, to be honest, this week. So I don't want to go too far and say this absolutely means this, and these guys are in trouble now. I don't feel that confident. I feel like a lot of the moves up to this point, it feels like they've been going more NASCAR's direction. But I think this this bit of revealing here, maybe that is changing. I don't know. But hopefully we'll get some more pieces of it. If there's like if there's a much, much bigger aspect of it, I think I'll have a better sense of that going forward. But I still feel like I don't have that yet. But yeah, nobody, it's the same thing I always go back to that I always reminded. And it's so hard to explain this, to when you're outside the system or something like that. It's an adversarial system. It really is. It's every much as an adversarial system as any competition would be. You are there to beat the other side, and that is going to be, the claws come out at that point, and it may be shocking in some cases if you've never been in a courtroom or had to put a case on or something like that. It can get real ugly really quick, and maybe this was an eye-opening moment for people, but again, this may well be why we're still looking at the case in December. And I think that the judge, from what little I'm seeing here on this end, when the judge is coming out and saying like, look, don't feel like, you have the winning case here, maybe you should be settling. Maybe there should be something on the other side of this. So again, I don't feel like I have enough to say, where this is going or who's winning or anything. I know that's always the thing. It's like, it's not a boxing match. It may be in terms of the violence, but in terms of like being really clear when somebody gets knocked down to the mat, it's like, well, okay, that guy's probably not winning. It's not easy to tell really, because it's all the maneuvering and so forth. I still don't feel like I have enough to go on that. It's interesting. It's certainly interesting. But I don't feel swayed enough to confidently say, which way the wind's blowing. I really don't. And I don't like straddling the fence on that, but I also don't like popping off on things where I don't have all the information that I can work with on that. So we'll see. But at any rate, we'll find out if that's going to be another one to deal with there too. Andrew, I see your questions there about, will they shut down if they lose this lawsuit? I don't know what the other side of this is going to look like. It's just as likely in this one. Again, is the result of this going to be, it's not just like, the teams win, they get all the, they're going to get all this money and the charters are going to be permanent and all that other stuff. It's not that cut and dry. I mean, it could result, you can have an order that maybe is sought out as a compromise, that NASCAR gets some concessions and the teams get others or whatever. I don't know what that's going to look like. We really don't know. What we do know is, at least from what we're hearing from, the people themselves, and Michael Jordan says he wants to, push for the betterment of the sport. He's in it for the long term. And I believe the man when he says it, and he's a long-term fan of the sport. He's, from when he was a young fan, he was visiting Haas Ellington's shop. I know when he says that, he's meaning that for real. As to how NASCAR is going to handle that or what their long-term plan is, and how a jury is going to look at this, if it ends up going in front of a jury, you don't know. And this is why cases settle, because you don't know, as to whether or not it should or what those terms would be. I'm sure they're both getting a lot of pressure towards that direction, but we'll see if that's going to be another part of it there. So I don't have anything too substantive on that, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing here from my background on that. Although, I'm sure there's other channels out there that'll have a lot more to say about that. But it is interesting. It's not nothing. I'll tell you that. It's not nothing. But it is interesting. We're getting a peek behind the curtain. I just want more. It's the same way I feel when I do my videos and stuff. I want to get more information and share it with you guys. I want to be able to put that out there. On that, I guess this is a good transition for that. One reason, I've been kind of tied up here, it's actually been a little bit difficult to kind of juggle my current NASCAR stuff right now, because I've been really feeling productive lately on working on these scripts for these videos. The Greg Sachs episode of Rise of the Field Fillers, I must have revised that script 4 or 5 times in just this last week alone. I've had new parts to record. I was recording more parts of it today, right before the race started, that I still got to drop into the timeline. But I feel like I'm pretty good at this point. I think unless something else comes to me, that needs to be in there that I feel like I've left out. I'm going to go with that. You know, it's already been recorded. I just got to edit it, get the outtakes clipped out, and get that going. But I'm very excited to get that done. So that's another one I'm working on. I have a couple other videos that I'm working on that, one of which I'm working on for the, do a Patreon exclusive video. And I have another one that's actually a follow-up to a video I've already released. So those are ones I've been working on. And in the meantime, Brian Hallman's been sending some great information over, and I've been picking up some old press kits that have kind of inspired me to work on some other scripts there too. So I've just been really busy with that part of it there. I'll tell you what, it's good that it's happening now, because when the season wraps up, be able to commit more time to that. And that'll be kind of the focus from this off season. So I'm very excited about getting that together and getting that up. I think the Greg Sachs video will probably be the next video that's on the main channel here. I think that one is very close to being edited. I know Brian provided a ton of pictures for it, so that should take care of a lot of the visuals. It's just gonna be a matter of just, putting all the pieces together there. There's still some, the other thing I really want to do is I want to get some interviews I want to catch up on. I haven't done an interview with Driver or anybody in a while. I've had some that, I did some scripts in the past, most notably the Stanton Barrett episode of Rise of the Field Fillers. That one is still just, I get a lot of questions about that. I think I talked about it on the show last week. I'm still just, completely, it's just suspended at this moment. I have a good draft of a script. Stanton himself wasn't happy about it and was kind of sharing some interesting information. And I had a lot of follow-up questions for it. I was like, ooh, this needs to be in there. And I feel like I'd revise it. It wouldn't be up to the level that the Greg Sachs video is. So it's got to be, right before that's ready. And I think we're getting there. I think we'll get there at some point. I think what's going to be the big moment is if he's actually entered in a race that I'm attending. I think that would be the moment that I'd be able to get that, because I think we need to do a face-to-face. I think that's going to be the moment to break through. I would have liked to have had this done before I did the All-Star episode, because that one I kind of touched on all the start and park teams that I had featured up to that point. But best laid plans of mice and men, they go off to glay. They don't always go to plan, and you got to work with that, and that's fine. So I'm rolling with that. But I do have some other interviews that I'd like to get done. And there's some that I've arranged, I've talked with people about that I just haven't done yet. We're kind of getting towards that. I think, again, I've looked back to this year, and then I did 2 large projects that I worked on at the deadline. And now I think that's why I feel a bit more loose on this, to kind of get some other stuff set up, is now I'm not doing these to deadline. It's like, if I get them, if it's done next week, great. If it takes till the end of the season, fine. But I think we're kind of catching up on that. So I'm not planning on doing something to deadline at the moment. But the good news is it should hopefully be more videos, which is ultimately what my goal was this whole year. That was a big reason I haven't really committed to doing another book or anything like that. I really want to kind of focus on doing more of the videos there. So we're getting there. And I think we'll be there. But I think it'll be something really enjoyable. I got some stuff I'm very excited about. And hopefully some shorter form content. I'd love to do that. Maybe not full on shorts. Like I haven't been able to make that adjustment the way Slap Shoes and others have, that they do the really short videos, but shorter videos. Shorter video for me would probably be average length on YouTube. It wouldn't be something that'd be 2 hours long. Maybe it'd be something less than an hour long, which would be great. I've noticed that some of the videos I posted that have been shorter have actually performed much better. I'm a little disappointed in how these last ones, both the Cartoon Network one and the Kenny Irwin one, I'm very pleased with how they came out. I'm very happy with the response and the comments people had on them, but they're just not getting the hits. They're just not doing it. And I've really, I sense that probably that's, again, it's just too much. It's too much stuff there. So I'm kind of turning the corner there a little bit. Now, there's still going to be series that inevitably are going to be long. This Greg Sachs video, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a long video. Next 500 Days on Talladega, where it's covering 2 weeks of the 2001 season, that's going to be a long video. But maybe everything else around it, I actually sorted, reorganized kind of my files, where I have a file there's just short-term topics and just long-term ones. So I can just kind of, if I have a new idea and it seems like it's going to get long, let's put in the long one. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit further when we have enough shorter videos, and then kind of go back to this other one and look there. So, I'm very visual when it comes to that kind of aspect. I try to actually have it where I can kind of see what's happening and so forth. So that's kind of what I'm working on here. And I feel like I got it to a good point here. Hopefully that'll be good. So the Sachs one will be, this is one of the videos along with the 500 days that it's kind of been in the works for a bit too long, and I want to kind of just get it out there. But I feel like once I do, I think that's going to make things easier going forward. So big thanks to you guys. I appreciate you guys' support. Those of you in the Patreon, thank you for your support on that. Patreon.com /LastCarOnBrock. Believe me, I'm working on getting some more stuff here out there for you guys. That's definitely worth checking out, and I'm very excited to share it. And again, they're really, really fun to put together. I've had some scripts coming together this week here that I think will be lay a good foundation for that going forward. So yeah, and I think it's a good time of the year to certainly do that. So we'll find out. Sean, I see you don't mind the long videos. I appreciate that. If you like long videos, you're still going to get long videos, but it's not going to be only long videos. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure I have stuff for everybody. If you got people that you prefer shorter videos, if you're looking to watch something on your lunch break, I get it. I do the same thing. I watch Joe is Hungry videos on my lunch breaks because I think he makes the food look really good. It's fun to eat during it, So things like that. Yeah, we'll have that going. So that'll be fun. Let's see here. Do we have another call inspection? I'll check that again, and then we'll do some trivia here. We did do the, yeah, we did that. I showed you the herp stuff there. Big thanks again to the folks over at the Riley Herp Day. I was tickled by that. I picked up, where was it? I picked up the hero card on that. They sent that out there too. Again, they didn't have to do that, but I really appreciate it there. And I thought that 35 looked really hip because it's a car number, doesn't get seen that much. So I did pick up a flag. I don't have a place to hang it yet, but maybe that'll end up here at Last Car headquarters eventually there. But after he got the last place finish and fill out a rookie, I think it was just that. I mean, after he got the last place run at Daytona and fill out of the Rookie of the Year battle, it was like, well, I've always going for the underdog there at the same time. And I was very impressed with Herbst and his great run at Talladega in the Front Row Motorsports one. I can't play favorites there at the same time, but, if he has a good run out there, maybe we'll have to fly this up there somewhere. So we'll find out if that's the case there too. Let's see. What is Greg Sachs up to these days, Andrew? I wish I knew. I saw a very short video somebody posted where he was visiting a short track back east, but I've not been able to get a hold of him. I will tell you that. I do not have an interview with Greg Sachs as part of this video, which is probably why it's taken so many rewrites to kind of get it to where it is. What I've decided to do is now that I've already recorded it and set it up, again, if it turns out like it's like, oh, that's not right. Maybe this will be something that'll kind of arrange an interview. And then we have a follow-up video. Then we get 2 videos. Actually, that's kind of what one of my other videos I'm working on this week is. I had an interview come together on a video I completed. And I'm like, well, do I want to re-edit this one and make everybody sit through it all over again when it's a long video? Or do I just want to create a new video where it's just the new information and it can focus on that? And I decided to do the latter. And I think that reason for that will come out pretty clearly on that. And then it can also encourage you to watch the old video if you want to get the rest of the story there too. So that's kind of, that's probably the way I'm going to approach it. Because I did that with the Gary Bradbury one years ago. And he did a very, very good interview. And it corrected a lot of details that I either didn't have enough information or it was just wrong information in the older video. Thankfully, not that much was wrong information. It just needed to be clarified there. But yeah, so again, would love to do more interviews. I need to set those up and just do them. It's always so tricky for me to schedule them because, I got to juggle that with my day job there. But they've been very, accommodating there too. So that's been very helpful. So hopefully that'll be something coming up. Andrew, let me give you a little. Will this be too much of a tease? I'll answer this question, Andrew, because it's a very good question. But let me first, before I do that, we'll do the trivia questions here. We'll do some trivia questions to wrap up. I'll have you guys pick your category here while I get into this. So the categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Once again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Andrew had a very good question here in the chat here about the Larry Hedrick team in 1992 and Dave Marcus and Hut Strickland taking over. That is really interesting. So just give you a little bit of a taste of the Greg Sachs video. I did follow up on that story because I've wondered that too. I actually have a list. I did an entry list from the Bristol race in 92 where Dave Marcus was in the 41 car, and I was like, is that a typo? It's like, no, he was actually in that car. So Larry Hedrick's team is really interesting. It's sadly, Mr. Hedrick himself passed away just a few years ago. This is, again, Hedrick, not Hendrick, no relation. It's a different organization, single car organization, ran the number 41 car. Started in, I believe, 1990, ran through the first part of 2000. In 1992, they were sponsored by Kellogg's, and this was their first full-time season, and Greg Sachs was their driver. But through the summer, the performance just dropped off. They just were having all kinds of issues. Things just weren't working, and they fired Greg Sachs in August. I believe he had a last-place run at Michigan at that time. Now, how on earth did Dave Marcus come into the equation? Well, the interesting thing with this is that Dave Marcus, then as ever, was driving his owner-driver operation, the number 71 car. And he was he would drive the 71 since 1979, at least, as an owner-driver. He'd been driving it before that many years ago. The reason that's significant is because at one point he worked with Harry Hyde, who was a longtime member of multiple different teams. He worked with Hendrick. He was the bass for Harry Hogg in the Days of Thunder movie and was a big part of some of those stories in that one there. But very early in his career, he worked at Nord Krauskopf's team, the K&K Insurance Dodge team. This is the one that Bobby Isaac drove to the championship in 1970, and this is what became Dave Marcus's team a few years later. In fact, Hyde was the crew chief, I believe, for 4 of Dave Marcus's 5 wins. And so eventually in 1992, Harry Hyde finds his way over to the Larry Hedrick team, and he's working on that organization. And I think when they fired Sachs, and it seemed like this was actually the case there in the articles, when they fired Greg Sachs, Harry Hyde must have gotten Larry Hedrick's ear and said, hey, look, Dave Marcus, he's been working his ass off on his team. He's still out there driving the number 71. He hasn't had a good shot with a big team in a while. Why don't we give him one? And so they brought him on there. And suddenly in the Bristol night race, Marcus is driving the 41 car. Now, Marcus didn't want to sell his team in 1992. So he actually got in touch with one of his friends, Jim Sauter, who's also from Wisconsin, a longtime driver, and had Sauter driving his car. He didn't want to sell his equipment, didn't want to shut down his team, didn't want to lose his rank and owner points. So he put Marcus in the car, and Marcus put Sauter in his car, and they go over to Bristol, which is the first race on the concrete surface, and Dave Marcus gets in a crash in that race. And for those next few races, Marcus isn't actually doing that much better than Greg Sachs. This is actually kind of an interesting trend in the rest of the video, and I'll save that for when that video is out there. But that's basically what happened, is you had Marcus got brought in there. The Harry Hyde connection was why he was recommended and not somebody else. And Marcus accepted. He just gave it a try. But unfortunately, it also didn't work out. In fact, Greg Sachs took over later in the year again at, I believe it was at Rockingham, and Hut Strickland in the Atlanta race. And it was just kind of a toss-up as to, who's going to be the driver going forward. So yeah, so that's basically kind of the story there in an overview. There's more to it. You'll have that in the Greg Sachs video. And the way that played out for Sachs is very emblematic of other phases of his career. It ended up, again, you can see why it's such a long story. That's just about one ride in one portion of the year in like August of 1992, maybe August to November. This is a career, we're going back to like the early 80s to the mid 2000s is going to be in this one. So I think it's still going to be just one video rather than a 2-parter. But we'll find out. It could be like the Carl Long one that ended up being 3 parts. Who knows? But yeah, hopefully you find that interesting. I thought it was interesting because I wondered that too. I do remember that was always weird. It's like, why is Marcus in the 41 car? Did he, yeah, did something else happen there? There's another interesting aspect of it that I did not bring up. That is the reason that Sachs got back in the car. To find out that, you're going to have to watch the video. So stay tuned for that, because there is more. There is more about that. But that's basically the first part of it there, too. Yes, Marcus, yeah, mentioning the battle with Riley Herbst, SVG, and Gilliland for the Lucky Dog. That was good. See, again, there was passing. And I don't want to sound like, like I'm covering for anything here, because I believe me, when it sucks, I'm going to say that it sucks. Iowa was not very good. The Spring Bristol race was not very good. And Pocono feels less good the more that I think about it in terms of the racing this year. But Darlington, there were some good tight moments out there, and there was some good green flag racing, which we've seen more and more in races lately, which I really like. But yeah, that battle there was really good. Van Gisbergen did a hell of a job getting that Lucky Dog there at the end of, was it stage 1? Very impressive. I thought that was cool. It's unfortunate the rest of his race didn't go very well. Unfortunately, that's another part of it. But that'll be something else to look into that. Let's see here. Where are we with categories? I see one for drivers, one for NASCAR, and one for wild card. We'll see. Yeah, the SRX Twitter was reactivated. Yeah, that was interesting. Alrighty. No, I see a couple for wild card. Okay, we'll do wild card then. We'll do just a couple questions here. It's later on the evening here. It's almost midnight Eastern. It's almost 9 o'clock Pacific. So we'll just do a couple questions, and then we'll wrap up for tonight. How's that sound, folks? Hopefully you've enjoyed on here. Let's see. Wild card. Yeah, here we go. Okay, here we go. This is kind of good with the lawsuit and everything. How about that? First question for this evening, folks. What city was Big Bill France born in? Don't look it up, because that'd be very easy. We don't want to make it that easy. Here we go. Now 3 for the wild card. Okay, here we go. What city was Big Bill France born in is the question. I'm going to get my Josh's Eggs sponsored water bottle here in just a moment. Alrighty. Josh, I don't know if you're in the chat here too, but yeah, if you didn't see, yep, I do have it on the bottle here. So there we go. Came out great. Thank you again for sending the stickers there. There you go. And I do have the P.O. Box open if you ever want stickers on this bottle or whatever like that. P.O. Box 1599, Sutter Creek, California, 95685. That's where my mailbox is. And you can also find that address at the bottom of the web page there. So yeah, again, big thanks to Josh there for the sticker there. Excuse me. What city was Big Bill France born in is the question. We got guesses for Washington, D.C., and Chicago, and Daytona, and Atlanta. All right, we'll get a little bit more here. Just taking a while with the inspection for the playoffs, maybe? I don't know. Unofficial. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here. What city was Big Bill France born in? Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any more guesses, so here we go. It is Washington, D.C. 611 Hornet, you got it. Washington, D.C. Yeah, I don't see anything either. Yeah, nothing on tech. We'll do a couple questions, but of course, if anything changes, we'll follow it on the Twitter feed at Last Car on Brock. But, yeah. Not that one. Not that one. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. How old was Jeff Gordon when he began racing quarter midgets? How old was Jeff Gordon when he began racing quarter midgets? Yeah, isn't that crazy, Jude Fernandez? Yeah, born in Washington, D.C. I was going to go with Daytona Beach. I was going to go with that too. Andrew Bremner guessed that, and Blue Moon 95. I was going to go with you guys, but nope. No, definitely not. How old was Jeff Gordon when he began racing quarter midgets? Quarter midgets. Same thing that Kenny Irwin raced as well. Let's see here. Interesting. Don't say it's not legit. You could have gone out there and won. Oh, is it Logano about the championship format? It's like, yeah, I'm shocked. I would be shocked at that point that Logano is like supportive of the format that had there. Oh, okay, hang on. We had J-Ski 9 seconds ago. No issues for Briscoe. He is officially the winner. Inspection complete at Darlington. We do have a call here on J-Ski. Okay, good. I'm glad we had it on the show tonight. I always feel a little hinky cutting the show off. I remember that show at Daytona I did a couple of years ago where I was blathering on about something in the news, and I'm like, and everybody's like, Brock, somebody got disqualified. I didn't even look at it, and I clicked off, and then right when I clicked off, I saw that somebody had disqualified. I was like, oh no. That's when I knew that this was not a news show, and, that's probably for the best. So there you go. Unless it's racing news, we can do that. How old was Jeff Gordon when he began racing quarter midgets? And the answer is 5. A couple of you guessed that. 5 is correct. Dusty DeBoer, you got it right off the bat. Base medal as well. And Ultimate 23 Dragon. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's legit. It's nothing about, and somebody else pointed this out, about the championship format. Uh-oh, we lost the screen here. There we go. Yeah, I mean, again, about the it's not who wins the championship. It's the championship format. I'm sure Joey Logano would, it's like, oh well, Joey would win more championships over the full season. I'd be like, fine, then he would have earned more championships. I don't have anything against him. Heck, I was there for a couple of those championships. So we'll see how it plays out this year. Who knows? Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. So I guess, 5 was the answer for Jeff Gordon here. Okay. We'll do one more question here just for the evening here, folks. Here we go. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall, but hated it in the wall? This is perfect. Here we go. This is a perfect one to wrap up on. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall, but hated it in the wall? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Last question for this evening. All right. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall but hated it in the wall? Guesses for Harry Gant, Kyle Petty. Whoop. See, I need to wrap up the show. My screen is unplugging. Must have had a loose wire here. I apologize for getting that obnoxious sound in the background here. That's what that is. There we go. David Pearson, Waltrip, Benny Parsons. Let's see. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall but hated it in the wall? That is the quote. Check my notes here too. Condolences to the friends and family of Zachary Yeager as well. I know the crew member that was with RSS and I believe the Roush Fenway Keselowski team. They did decals that they ran on the cars there as well this weekend. I never spoke with him. I may have crossed paths with him back at Rockingham when we were following the Sieg team there during that action there. But yeah, one way or the other. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall but hated it in the wall? Checking my other notes here at the same time. Oh, yeah. Well, there is one thing with the lawsuit that I thought was interesting. I do have it on my notes here. Yeah, NASCAR talking about issuing another charter, and now suddenly they can issue up to 4 more charters. That's news. Was that news to anybody else? Like, why does it feel like in this charter? I mean, as if I don't have enough problems with this charter system. Why does it feel like I get, everybody knows what the rules are, but the rules just always change. The rules are changing constantly. I don't know why I'm surprised with this with NASCAR. They've always done this. They change rules in the middle of the season. But it's even more aggravating with the charters because it's like, oh, well, it's always been that way. Oh, it's always been that way. It's like, well, why has this never come up before? Why has this never come up before? Why didn't this come up when there was the topic of these teams losing their charters? Why didn't they say, oh, well, they might get one of the new charters that NASCAR would create? It's like somebody can't be right here. Either there's this massive contract. I hate I hate using the term gaslighting, but I feel that way. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp as best I can as an outsider of what the charter system is and how it functions and why it's set up the way it is. And yet every time I get one of these new things that comes up about it, and it's like, oh, well, of course it's that way. Well, what? Like, why is it always presented to me that way? It's like, hang on, let's talk about this. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that have happened to this point wouldn't have happened if that were true earlier. Yeah, that one stuck in I wrote that in my notes here, and I'm like, yeah, it's like, what is going on? Like, I'll take if I just did not understand it, or if everybody else was talking about it, and it just never came up in a situation until now, maybe that, but I don't feel like that's the case here. And then talking about like, oh, where's this other charter going to go? Or I don't know. It feels like it's made up on the spot. I don't know. So we'll see. Who said, okay, here we go. Last time. Who said he loved Darlington in the fall but hated it in the wall? That is a Darrell Waltripism. Darrell Waltrip is the correct answer. Yeah, piece of metal. I think, yeah. You and I are not far apart on what all that looks like. Such a mess. I'm still not satisfied about how every charter that becomes available goes through Spire Motorsports and all that, and all, it's just like, I like what's going, I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have on it there too, but it seems like those don't usually get answered too much. Darrell Waltrip was the correct answer. Did anybody guess that? I don't think anybody did. What if Denny has to shake hands with Jim France if he wins the championship? If he does, I'll be there. We'll find out. I'll probably be in the garage area during that, but if that happens, I'll probably stop there first because that'll be interesting. We'll see. Let's see. Oh, okay. Kyle Petty. Andrew and Jude, you both guessed Kyle Petty. That sounds like it. Yes, Michael, I did. I think I did mention Forrest Lucas last week, but it does bear repeating though. Yeah, condolences to his friends and family as well. It's again, Lucas Oil and their sponsorship in the sport and their ties with the Auto Club Speedway down south. We remember they came up at the Larry Gunselman video for how long that Larry knew him as well. It's something that perhaps it's appropriate that the Lucas Oil car won the last Cup race at the California track. So it's another way to look at that back there. But yes, Darrell Waltrip is the correct answer on that. Yeah, I don't think anybody got that. Oh no, Michael Jensen, you put Waltrip. There you go. I'm sorry. You got it. Alrighty. Well, tell you what, folks, that will do it for the show here for this evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Congratulations to Chase Briscoe for pulling off his second consecutive Southern 500 win. Josh Berry, your last place finisher of the Southern 500, will be featured in an article later tonight. In the meantime, the Patreon is patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. My Twitter feed is at lastcaronbrock. And of course, there's more videos on this channel and more videos that are on their way. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a wonderful Labor Day for those of you, our American viewers here. And I'll see you all next time as we cover the action in Gateway. We will be here after the Sunday race there to cover everything from that weekend and discuss it back here on the show. And we'll find out what happens. So have a good evening, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.